Have you ever had the feeling that your cat wasn't just looking at you, but looking into you? That quiet, motionless, stare cold but not unkind, still but strangely alive lingers. It's the kind of look that bypasses the surface and settles deep into your bones, as though the creature knows something you've spent years trying to forget. Most would call it curiosity, but Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, would call it something else entirely. He would call it a symbolic encounter, a manifestation of the shadow. In Jung's own words, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And what if fate arrives not in thunderous signs or dramatic revelations, but in the slow blink of a cat, resting in the corner of your room, quietly holding a mirror to your soul? Jung's journey into the symbolic world of animals wasn't abstract. It was personal, clinical, grounded in lived experience. One particular patient came to him with a troubling confession. For several weeks, the young man had been dreaming of a black cat. Every single night, the same cat. It never moved, never made a sound. It simply sat in the corner of his room and stared at him night after night, its eyes fixed not on his body, but on something deeper. This wasn't a horror story. The cat didn't attack or whisper or change shape. It didn't need to. Its silence was the message. Now most therapists might brush this off as a quirky dream, but Jung was different. He knew that the unconscious doesn't waste its breath on meaningless imagery. In Jungian psychology, animals and dreams are living symbols. They appear when words are no longer sufficient. They carry the weight of our inner conflicts, our hidden truths. And when a cat appears, especially one that watches, it often signifies the emergence of the shadow. So what is the shadow? In Jung's system, it's the part of the psyche that holds everything we've repressed or disowned. Our fears, insecurities, unspoken desires, and buried traumas. Not evil, not demonic, but rejected. The shadow isn't bad. It's just unloved. And like anything unloved, it begins to haunt. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. After Jung explained this to the young man, that the cat symbolized his own disowned self, something changed. The dream stopped. But then, cats began appearing in his waking life. Stray cats on rooftops. Cats slinking along the edges of alleys. Cats sitting on windowsills. Watching, always watching. This is no longer just dream analysis. This is symbolic reality. To Jung, this was the psyche speaking in stereo, first through dreams, then through waking life. He believed that when the unconscious is ignored internally, it begins to project itself externally. It spills into patterns, into chance encounters, into synchronicities, and the cat, mysterious, independent, silent, becomes one of its most eloquent messengers. Why the cat? Because the cat doesn't perform, it doesn't obey, it doesn't seek approval. The cat simply is, entirely itself, quietly sovereign. And that's what the shadow is. The raw, unfiltered truth of the self, stripped of masks. So when the cat appears, especially during periods of inner conflict, it isn't random. It's a confrontation. But unlike a violent confrontation, the cat doesn't attack. It reflects. It doesn't chase you. It waits. And in that, waiting is a powerful invitation. Face me, integrate me, or continue being haunted by what you refuse to see. That's the first message of the shadow. It will never leave until it is seen. So ask yourself, have you noticed your cat behaving strangely during times of anxiety or grief? Has it ever sat by you in silence during heartbreak? Has it ever avoided certain corners of your home? These are not just behavioral quirks. To Jung, they may be symbolic indicators. The cat isn't simply observing your mood. It may be reflecting the terrain of your soul. And what about that stare? That gaze you can't quite decipher? Jung believed that in such moments, it's not really the cat who's watching you. It's your own unconscious, reflected through the cat's eyes. In that silence, something ancient is speaking. To brush it off is to miss the message, but to honor it, to become curious, present, still is to begin the process of individuation, the journey of becoming whole. Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And perhaps, sometimes, the first step toward that privilege is found not in a book or a therapist's office, but in the quiet gaze of a creature who knows no pretense, who has always lived in the shadows, and who may just be here to guide you through your own. There's a moment, quiet, subtle, when a cat enters a room and everything shifts. It doesn't make a sound. It doesn't need to. The energy changes. The air thickens. It's as if an unseen presence has joined the space. And perhaps it has. Carl Jung understood this sensation well. To him, the cat was never just an animal. It was an archetype, a living symbol, drawn from the deepest layers of the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious, in Jung's view, is the ancient reservoir of memory and myth that lies beneath all human experience. It holds the blueprints of our shared psychological architecture: the mother, the hero, the trickster, the shadow. And among these archetypal forms, the cat occupies a unique and mysterious place. Across civilizations separated by time, geography, and belief, the cat reappears again and again, not just as an animal companion, but as a spiritual figure, a mythological force. In ancient Egypt, cats were worshipped as guardians of the soul and protectors of sacred spaces. Bastet, the feline goddess, was both nurturer and warrior tender, yet lethal. To kill a cat in Egypt was once punishable by death. In medieval Europe, the perception shifted. Cats became feared. Their independence, nocturnal nature, and refusal to submit made them targets of suspicion. They were burned with witches, feared as omens, seen as agents of the occult. And yet, in Eastern cultures, they returned again as protectors of the home, guardians of harmony, watchers of unseen forces. Jung didn't see these cultural shifts as arbitrary. He saw them as symbolic expressions of the same core psychological truth. The cat represents what is mysterious, untamable, and ultimately beyond conscious control. It is the archetype of the threshold, the line between the visible and the invisible, the known and the unknowable. Why is this important? Because thresholds are powerful. They are where transformation happens, and the cat, as threshold keeper, is never random in its appearance. When it shows up, especially in times of change, conflict, or awakening, it is often a signal that the unconscious is stirring, that the boundary between your outer world and your inner life is beginning to dissolve. Jung believed that every archetype is a call to remember something forgotten. And in the case of the cat, what it invites us to remember is our relationship to mystery, our intuition, our capacity to feel rather than control, to dwell in ambiguity rather than seek immediate answers. Think of how a cat moves. It doesn't rush, it glides. It doesn't chase attention, it draws it. There is a quality of presence in cats that feels almost ancient, timeless, as if they are not entirely here, as if part of them exists in another realm. And perhaps they do. In one of his more poetic reflections, Jung wrote, "Where there is a cat, there is a threshold between the world we know and the one we've forgotten." This wasn't metaphor to him. It was a lived reality. Jung saw cats as living symbols of liminality, the in-between. And in that space between, the unconscious waits, not in silence, but in symbol. When your cat fixes its eyes on an empty corner? Is it seeing nothing? Or is it sensing something your conscious mind has not yet acknowledged when it refuses to enter a room or suddenly bolts for no reason? Is it just being a cat? Or is it reflecting something deeper in your home or in your heart? Jung taught that we must learn to see symbolically, to stop reducing the world to surface-level logic and start perceiving it through the lens of meaning. This is not superstition. This is psychological awareness. It's the ability to recognize when the outer world is mirroring the inner one. And the cat, in all its mystery, becomes a potent symbol for this kind of vision. It's not just the cat's history that matters. It's its behavior, its silence, its gaze, its patterns. These are not quirks. They are codes, to be decoded not with science, but with sensitivity. Jung would often remind his patients, pay attention to what shows up when you're not looking. And the cat, more than perhaps any other animal, has a way of appearing when something within you is ready to shift, ready to confront the unknown. The archetypal cat doesn't ask for your attention. It waits for your awareness. And when you give it that awareness, not just as a pet owner, but as a soul traveler, you begin to notice something extraordinary. Your environment becomes a language. Your interactions become signs. Your life becomes mythic. Because what if the universe isn't random? What if your unconscious isn't silent? What if the cat in your life isn't there by accident, but by design? A design written not in ink, but in symbol. You see, the cat has always lived in the shadows. It thrives in the unseen, and that's why it serves as such a precise metaphor for the parts of you that are ready to be illuminated. So next time your cat enters the room and locks eyes with you, don't look away. Don't dismiss it. Witness it, because in that moment, you're not just looking at an animal. You are standing at a threshold, and beyond it waits your own transformation. In Jung's view, symbols don't merely describe reality, they shape it. And if the cat is a symbol, then it is not passive. It's alive. It doesn't just reflect your unconscious. It participates in it. It acts, responds, moves with meaning. Over the years, through careful study, quiet observation, and thousands of therapy sessions, Carl Jung uncovered 3 core revelations about the deeper nature of cats, each one a key, each one a mirror, each one a threshold into the self. In Jungian psychology, the shadow isn't just what we repress, it's what we actively deny. And sometimes, this denial has energy. It moves, it stirs, it demands recognition, not through thought, but through symbols, dreams, encounters. Jung noticed that in moments of intense inner conflict, grief, guilt, depression, cats often appeared not just in dreams, but in waking life. They would enter rooms uninvited, sit quietly during emotional storms, curl up beside patients during moments of confession. One patient even reported that his cat only approached him during panic attacks, then vanished as soon as he regained composure. Coincidence? No. To Jung, the cat becomes a symbolic activation of the shadow, what he called the active shadow, a living expression of the disowned self, returning not with malice, but with message. The cat doesn't attack. It observes. It doesn't flee from your sadness. It rests in it. It absorbs it. It knows. And by doing so, it invites you to do the same, to sit in the discomfort, to look into the emotion, to stop running from your own reflection. Because until you do, the shadow remains a threat. But when you turn toward it, it becomes a teacher. If the dog is loyalty, the cat is sensitivity. Jung believed that cats dwell closer to the primordial psyche, the original layer of being that exists before language, before ego, before conditioning. In this sense, cats are more than intuitive. They are tuned in to the subtle currents that humans have forgotten how to feel. While we fill our lives with tasks, distractions, and rational justifications, the cat remains grounded in presence, still, attuned, receptive. Have you ever watched a cat stare at a wall or follow something invisible across the room? It's not madness. It's not nonsense. Jung saw it as a perceptual event. The cat may be sensing what we have no words for. Shifts in energy, symbolic presences, unconscious turbulence. They don't question it. They respond. In this way, the cat becomes a psychic antenna, a creature whose instincts are still clean, unfragmented by modern life. They don't need to believe in the unconscious. They live in it. And when they act strangely, stare at corners, or avoid certain people, Jung believed they may be reacting to emotional fields, to inner dissonance, or even symbolic presences from the collective unconscious itself. The cat, as seer, reminds us of a truth we've buried beneath logic. Some truths are not spoken, they are sensed. And if you learn to listen, not with ears, but with awareness, you may begin to sense them too. This final revelation is not metaphor, it is vibration. Jung believed in the healing power of symbol, but he also believed in the healing power of sound. In ancient traditions, from Tibetan chants to shamanic drumming, repetitive tones were used to shift consciousness, align energy, restore inner balance. To Jung, the cat's purr wasn't just cute, it was sacred. That low, steady hum. It emerges not from need or command, but from contentment, connection, and a kind of meditative surrender. And what's more mysterious, it often arises when the cat is beside someone in pain. A silent offering, a shared resonance. Modern science has confirmed that a cat's purr vibrates between 25 and 150 hertz, a range known to stimulate tissue regeneration, nerve repair, and stress relief. But Jung didn't need a frequency chart. He felt it. To him, the purr was like a soft incantation, a vibrational message from the soul of the cat to the soul of the human. Not logical, not spoken, but received. Like a mantra whispered in the dark, like a lullaby from the unseen, a sound that bypasses ego and goes straight to the place in us that still remembers what peace feels like. And perhaps that's the deepest truth of all. The cat doesn't just reflect your pain, it soothes it, not by fixing it, but by being present with it, with you. So what are we left with? Not just a pet, not just a dream figure, but a living, breathing, symbolic being. The cat, as Jung saw it, is a shadow mirror, a symbol seer, and a soul healer, a being that walks beside us silently, yet with purpose. Its gaze doesn't ask for attention. Its purr doesn't ask for praise. It simply reminds us gently, wordlessly, that everything we seek outside is already waiting inside, waiting to be remembered, to be healed, to be whole. Symbols are not just things we dream about. According to Jung, they are things we live with, and often without knowing it. If the cat is a symbol, it is not confined to myth or metaphor. It sits on your windowsill. It walks beside you in the quiet hours of the night. It chooses when to be near you and when to vanish. And in doing so, it reflects something much deeper than mere personality. It reflects your soul's landscape. In Jungian psychology, the ultimate aim is not happiness or productivity. It is individuation, the long, inward journey toward becoming a whole human being, not perfect, not idealized, but integrated with all the hidden, repressed, and mysterious parts of yourself brought into conscious relationship. This is not an abstract goal. It is deeply practical. It is lived in moments, in relationships, in the everyday, and sometimes it is lived through the presence of a cat. Jung believed that everything external has the potential to reflect the internal, a philosophy that turns ordinary life into a dialogue with the unconscious. Dreams, relationships, illnesses, coincidences, and yes, animals, especially those that appear during times of psychological turbulence or transformation. If your cat suddenly avoids a particular room, that may be symbolic. If it sits beside you only when you're grieving or anxious, that may be meaningful. Jung advised not to fall into paranoia or magical thinking, but to approach these behaviors with symbolic awareness. A cat's behavior might reflect emotional fields, hidden anxieties, or shadow content you haven't fully acknowledged. Their presence becomes a mirror, not of who you show the world, but of who you truly are when no one is watching. Where does your cat choose to rest? When does it avoid you? When does it approach? These aren't just questions about the animal. They are questions about you. Just as Jung encouraged patients to keep dream journals, he also emphasized the value of tracking symbolic experiences in waking life. He called it the language of the unconscious, and for those who lived with cats, he often suggested something radical. Keep a behavior journal, not just when the cat eats or sleeps, but when it appears beside you, how it behaves during certain emotional states, where it chooses to spend time. Over weeks, patterns often emerge, unexpected synchronicities that mirror your own psychological journey. This is not superstition. It's a practice of depth perception, a way of learning to see meaning in what most people call coincidence. If you are entering a phase of grief, uncertainty, or interchange, and your cat begins acting differently, don't ignore it. Record it, reflect on it, and ask yourself, what part of my life is shifting beneath the surface? Over time, you may notice something profound. Your environment has been communicating with you all along. The cat's presence, Jung taught, is not just symbolic. It is sacred. And when we treat it that way, the mundane becomes holy. To stroke a cat in silence during your darkest hour is to affirm life's quiet continuity. To watch it sleep in the same spot where you once cried is to see healing in repetition. To feed it, to let it come and go freely, is to respect a being that exists on the edge of two worlds. These acts, when done with awareness, become rituals, simple, personal, transformative. They remind us that symbols are not lifeless icons. They are living presences, and when honored, they unlock something in us, something forgotten. Jung often wrote that honoring the symbol activates the psyche, meaning when we consciously engage with symbols, they begin to work on us, shift us, heal us, teach us. So, treat your cat not just as a pet, but as a companion on the road to individuation, a guide who never explains, but always reveals, a guardian of thresholds who moves between the seen and the unseen with quiet authority. This is not about projecting fantasy onto an animal. It's about recognizing that the soul speaks in subtle forms. The purr, the stare, the silence sitting beside you when you can't speak. Each moment contains layers of meaning if you're willing to look beyond behavior and into symbolism. Carl Jung didn't believe in rigid doctrines or absolute interpretations. He believed in awareness, in paying attention, in recognizing that the outer world reflects the inner one, especially during times of change. Your cat may not solve your problems, but it may point you toward the place where your problems begin, the place within, the place you've been afraid to see, but now, finally, feel ready to meet. When you treat that presence as meaningful, when you engage with it as a symbol, you are no longer just living with a cat. You are walking with a mirror, a mystic, a shadow bearer, and a light bringer. And every moment you share becomes an invitation. Will you step deeper into yourself? Will you dare to become whole? There's a moment quiet, unexpected, when something appears in your life that feels too meaningful to be random. A stray cat begins showing up at your doorstep during a season of grief. Your pet gazes at you intensely. During an argument you're trying to suppress, you start seeing cat imagery in dreams, books, street art, all at once, as if the universe itself is whispering, "Pay attention." To most people, these are accidents, but to Carl Jung, they are something far more profound. He called it synchronicity, meaningful coincidences with no causal connection, but with undeniable psychological resonance, events that occur not because they are logically related, but because they are symbolically timely. In other words, they arrive when your soul is ready to receive them. Jung believed that when symbols show up repeatedly, especially in emotionally charged periods, they are not interruptions. They are revelations. And the cat, with its ancient mystery and silent stare, became for him one of the most telling symbols of synchronicity in motion. He saw the arrival of a cat, whether in waking life, in a dream, or through an unexpected encounter, as a form of inner communication made visible, a bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, between what you don't yet know and what is ready to be revealed. So what is being revealed? That depends on you. If you're facing a moment of inner transition, loss, awakening, or conflict, the cat may be pointing to the part of yourself you're not fully listening to. It could be intuition, repressed grief, spiritual hunger, a need for solitude, or the call to step beyond ego into something deeper. It may not come with clarity, but it will come with resonance, and that resonance is the soul's way of saying, "This means something." When a cat locks eyes with you and holds your gaze, something strange happens. Time stretches, words vanish, and you find yourself wondering, what does it see? Jung would say, it sees what you don't. Not because the cat is magical, but because the symbol is alive. And when you engage with it, not as a distraction, but as a messenger, you invite a shift. Your perception begins to change. You start to see yourself seeing. You become aware of the inner tension, the unspoken longing, the quiet truth waiting to be named. The cat becomes a catalyst. It doesn't give answers. It evokes questions, and those questions, those quiet, internal inquiries are the beginning of transformation. You might wonder, what if I don't have a cat in my life? What if this message still moves me? Jung would tell you, then the symbol is already working. The psyche is already in motion. You don't need to own a cat for the archetype to appear. It may show up through dreams, memories, stories, art, or even this very video. The cat is not bound by form. It's bound to meaning. And when you feel that meaning stir within you, that is synchronicity. The cat appears where the soul is listening. And if you're listening now, perhaps it's already close. Jung believed that when symbols arise, they are not meant to be worshipped or decoded like puzzles. They are meant to be related to as living entities, as guides, as energies that ask for participation. The cat, then, is not Karasasin Esankern in Dusla. Dakisla Junkrishmonsi, Waysmith o Masmomsen, in Yosisile Yahamas, your life Yahankur Komisans. It is a threshold companion, a being that nudges you toward wholeness, that reminds you there is more beneath the surface, that urges you. Don't reduce life to what you can measure. Feel what you're missing, because modern life numbs us with logic, speed, and noise. But the symbolic world moves slowly, silently. It waits for those who see inwardly. And when you do, even the cat's softest purr becomes a message. Even its indifference becomes a lesson. Even its absence becomes a question. So what do you do with all this? You don't figure it out. You live it. You start noticing. You create stillness. You let the cat be a cat, but with symbolic reverence. You open the journal. You observe the timing. You speak less and listen more. You don't chase the meaning. You let it arrive. And when it does, you honor it with gratitude, with attention, with presence. Because the soul doesn't shout, it whispers. And sometimes it whispers through the eyes of a cat. Carl Jung never claimed that animals were gods or that symbols had fixed meanings. What he claimed was far more daring, that life itself is symbolic. And if we dare to look beneath its surface, we may find that everything, yes, even the cat sitting quietly at your feet, is part of the great hidden dialogue between the self and the soul. The next time a cat stares at you, ask yourself, not, why is it looking at me? Ask, what part of me is it trying to awaken? Because it may not be looking at your face. It may be looking at your truth. So the next time a cat crosses your path or lingers in your gaze longer than expected, remember, it may not be coincidence. It may be the unconscious speaking, quietly, symbolically, soul to soul, whether through shadow, silence, intuition, or healing. The cat reflects something already living within you, something forgotten but not lost, a deeper self, calling to be seen. And if this message stirred something inside you, some quiet knowing or long dormant curiosity, then this journey is yours to continue. Let this space be your mirror. 2. Subscribe to the channel if you're walking the path of inner transformation. Leave a comment. Have you ever had a moment where a cat felt more like a messenger than a pet? Like the video if it opened your eyes to the unseen dimensions of the everyday. Here, every symbol matters and every soul is welcome.